It's interesting with sex offenders because what the research shows is that the majority of people who go on to commit sex offenses do have a history of trauma or sexual abuse, but the reverse isn't true. Just because you've been sexually abused does not mean that most of them are going to go out and perpetrate against other people.
Correct. Welcome to Inside the Polygraph. I'm your host, David Goldberg, expert polygraph examiner. Join me as I and my guests break down the facts, fictions of polygraph testing, law enforcement, and so much more. Real cases, real conversations. The truth is always revealed inside the polygraph. We're back with Dr. Alana Hollings, and let's get back to the topic. I've said this multiple times on my podcast, and I'll repeat it today, and I'm sure you will have the same sentiment. In every profession, there are poor individuals that work in our profession that do a poor job sometimes and that hurt individuals. Would you agree?
Yes.
And then what happens is that individual has to then get either a second evaluation, or we in our profession, and when I say we, me and you or others, we get hired to reevaluate them or retest them in order to find out if the first professional was correct or if they made a mistake. Has that happened with you?
It has, and I especially, I know you and I have been on cases with psychosexuals with issues, and I think the issue is that some other providers sometimes will use like a blanket report, and they provide the same recommendations for every individual without really looking at the specific case. And because it was referred as a sex offender case, they'll refer treatment just because everyone should get treatment, rather than saying, right, is this someone who really needs treatment based on the details of the case? So I think it really takes just dedication, listening to what the individual is saying, reviewing the records, and speaking to appropriate collateral sources before determining what is actually needed in every case.
And I think you hit it right on point when you said that when they go, they just follow the same list, the same checkoffs. You are this, you are this. The same with if you're a sex offender, you fall in the same category, and I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to. And the same with polygraph examiners. And I've said this multiple times, that if you have an issue and you go to just any polygraph examiner without checking their credentials, checking their experience, it could harm you greatly. And it's the same with any kind of profession, a therapist, psychiatrist, doctor, lawyer, anyone. And if you're just looking for cheapness or cost, you pay what you get what you pay for. And when an individual comes to me, they are individual. I don't care if they've done, per se, the same kind of crime. Sex offending is sex offending, okay? However, there is a different victim. You are a different individual, and now I'm going to learn who you are, why you did it, what made you do it, and then I'm going to then evaluate you and then verify the truth. And I'm sure that's exactly what you do, correct?
Yes.
A perfect example, and that's why I referred them to you, was, and I don't mention any names on this, and I will never, but I can say this incident, and it's a very good incident in reference to the outcome. This individual was convicted of a sex offense. He served his time, and he was placed on probation. When he was placed on probation, you have guidelines that you must follow for probation. And he was doing everything he was supposed to do. And he was getting ready to get off probation. And he made future plans with friends for his future goals and life. And he was so super excited. And he went to the probation officer, and the probation officer said, guess what? You had not done a psychosexual evaluation, and I can't release you from probation. This guy was just as if, a Mack truck had hit him, head on. And he said, well, I never was told. I never knew this. So he went to a therapist, just what you said, that the therapist checked off the boxes and said you have now checked off and you have propensity for recidivism. And the guy said, are you kidding me? I've been doing everything I was supposed to. I haven't done anything. He goes, you now have to go get a polygraph examination. The individual came to me. I did an extensive polygraph examination. And based on everything, I saw nothing that he would have indicated anything that would have been, one, recidivism. He would have reoffended another minor or anything. I then said to him, he needs to go get a second evaluation based on the first therapist. And I recommended him to you, obviously. You did another evaluation on him. Do you remember?
So to provide a little bit more context of
that
case, this individual, he was communicating with a person who told him he was an adult, and he went to the person's house for the intent of sexual activity that was mutually agreed upon. The quote unquote victim came out and went into the defendant's car, and they started engaging in sexual activity. And then the victim's mother came out and said, do you know how old he is? He is 15 or 16. And the defendant said, what? I had no idea. He told me he was 18. I thought he was an adult. And he left the scene immediately.
Correct.
After he found out. In this case, it's my understanding he was not even referred for treatment ever.
That's correct.
And so when he went to the other evaluator, as recommended by his probation officer, that evaluator recommended now that he attend sex offender treatment.
Right.
And as you just stated, this is an individual who had plans for his future. He was planning on leaving the country, and there were a lot of things that he was looking forward to. And obviously this was a huge obstacle and hurdle. And so then you did the polygraph, and you had did a very extensive job. And I reviewed the polygraph results and saw that. So when I met with him, I reviewed the collateral records to confirm the veracity of the information he provided me. I interviewed him, and I evaluated him and determined that this is someone who, honestly, even the fact that he had a misdemeanor sex offense, because it was reduced to that, because even they realized, the prosecutor realized that this was not something, this wasn't like a criminally intended activity.
Right. Even the victim, alleged victim, testified on his behalf and said he didn't do anything wrong and I lied. He even said that in court, that the victim, alleged victim, if you want to call it, said, I lied to this man and it was all my fault. And
so this in court. So in my estimation, and with the use of your results from the polygraph and reviewing the records, I did not feel that treatment was necessary. This, to me, was something that should have never gotten to the point that it did. And my belief was that from reading the initial evaluator's report, it just seemed very cookie cutter, and that it was something that was just repeated because that's what he always would report.
Correct.
Without taking into consideration the specific details of that case.
Right. And if you didn't know, the good news is after your evaluation, after it was all presented to the courts, he was released off of probation. The individual sent me an email thanking me for referring him to you and what we did for him. And he's now enjoying his future plans in life out of the country with his 3 best friends. And he's living the life that he dreamt about and just enjoying life. And I will say this, had it not been for his getting a second opinion that he wanted and asked after, if he, came to me, that man probably would have been on probation for lengthy time.
And it was very good that you spoke up for yourself and spoke up on his behalf, even to the evaluator. And even when the evaluator was unwilling to,
he was very mad about me. I mean, and we can say that he did not like my report. I didn't say anything bad about him, per se. I just went against what the evaluator, said in his report. And I'll say it. And the evaluator said that, I had no right in going against him, is what he said. And then that's why I referred that individual to you, because I knew your expertise and I knew that you would trump that evaluator. And obviously I was correct from the very beginning. And so that's what happens when you go and get a second opinion. And so I'm going to tell everyone that's listening right now, if you've ever gone to a therapist or a counselor and you don't like something, again, and I'm not saying if you don't like what they tell you, I'm saying if you get evaluated and you really are strong, fast, that something might be wrong, it's okay to get a second opinion. And the same with a polygraph examination. If something is not right in your evaluation when you go take a polygraph test, it's okay, ladies and gentlemen, to go get a professional second opinion at a well-experienced polygraph examiner as myself. Have you been accused of one of the following in your life, such as infidelity, custody matters, CPS investigations, or serious criminal matters that you're currently being investigated for? At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we have been helping thousands of individuals for over 24 years, no matter who you are or what you have been accused of, with the highest accuracy, integrity, and overall compassion to everyone's needs. We are not your typical polygraph or lie detection service. At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we are certified experts recognized in courts throughout the country, and we stand by our promise to give you full closure and all your needed answers. Call at 757-495-1301 and visit our website at www.executiveprotectiongrp.com to get started. Let's continue. In reference to the other major issues that you deal with, not just sex offending, let's talk about victims. Victims are very, very important, and they're very important to me when I help them. What do you do as a forensic psychologist with victims, both adults and with juveniles?
So I do not work with children,
Okay.
but I do provide some trauma work and therapy for individuals who have either been diagnosed with PTSD or have been exposed to some form of trauma. And that is a specific type of treatment. Sometimes I also refer them to EMDR. I don't provide that, but that has also been found to be an effective approach in helping with trauma.
But you have adults that were once victims, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
Okay.
And oftentimes, it's interesting with sex offenders because what the research shows is that the majority of people who go on to commit sex offenses do have a history of trauma or sexual abuse, but the reverse isn't true. Just because you've been sexually abused does not mean that most of them are going to go out and perpetrate against other people.
Correct.
So oftentimes, though, when I'm providing therapy to individuals who've committed sex offenders or who are dealing with addiction, pornography addiction specifically, they also have a history of trauma. So I incorporate that type of treatment into my sexual offender treatment as well.
And I'm glad you brought up pornography addiction, because I get a lot of couples that come to me and say, well, my husband, my significant other is addicted to porn. And the first thing out of my mouth is have they been diagnosed, or is that just an excuse coming out of their mouth because they got caught? Can you tell, because there's a lot of women listening to me right now, and a lot of couples that, probably are listening as well. Can you tell people what is really the diagnosis for someone who would be addicted to pornography?
So it's a very good question. And interestingly, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that we as clinicians use to diagnose does not acknowledge pornography addiction in the DSM.
Okay.
And so there are professionals who don't believe in sex addiction or pornography addiction.
But there is a diagnosis, correct?
But not from our diagnostic manual.
Okay.
However, I think any professional who provides that type of treatment, we've seen it. We've seen the ramifications of it.
Okay.
And if you look at any type of addictive behavior, if you look at substance use, if you look at gambling, right, it usually is something that starts, because viewing pornography of adults is legal.
Correct.
Right. So it starts as, let's say, a hobby or something they recreationally do. And then their frequency of use grows over time to the point, let's say, that it might go from once or twice a week. Then it goes to 5 times a week to daily. Then it might be for 10 minutes, but then they start doing it for hours.
Right.
And then the type of material, and this is one of the big factors, is that they stopped getting the same response from materials that they had previously viewed.
Lack of arousal.
So oftentimes that's what leads them to start looking for more deviant type of material.
Taboo.
Correct. So that always isn't necessarily child pornography. It could be bestiality. It could be
all kinds.
They have all sorts of things out there, right? But oftentimes they start looking for younger things, or they start trading material like just online.
Right.
And then
the dark web.
Some people use the dark web.
Right.
Majority don't, but some do.
Yes, exactly.
And on those websites, they can just, let's say, have their material open to other people. Well, so people like trade back and forth that way. And they may download just like a ton of just different materials without really knowing what's on there. Well, then they start clicking on these different links or whatnot, and they opens up and they're like, oh, wow. And then they see something that's completely taboo and different. That might be the starting point.
Right.
For them to get into something else. Sometimes they go on chat rooms, and then there's like actual chat rooms that are specific to individuals who are looking for pornography of minors. I mean, so once it becomes an issue, when it starts being really secretive, when you start seeking more deviant material, when you stop getting aroused to the material that you previously got aroused to, when it starts interfering with your daily functioning and your responsibilities, those are all signs of addiction.
Correct. And so you, in your treatment, you give them courses or plans on how to wean themselves off of that?
So one of the first things that I do is refer them to read a book. It's called Your Brain on Porn.
Okay.
And tell them they can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
And it really goes into the research about how your brain changes by looking at pornography excessively.
Sure.
And that your brain can heal when you stop looking at it. It takes time.
Right.
But it does progress. It also provides stories about other individuals who have struggled with like pornography addiction. But it doesn't it mentions child pornography, but that's not the goal of the book. I also oftentimes refer them to a program called Celebrate Recovery, which is a addiction treatment program, but it's based out of a church, but you don't have to be religious to go there. And they usually have a service to start, and they have breakout groups. And the groups have things for substance abuse, pornography, and whatnot. And I would just tell them, go listen to other people's stories, hear what they have to say.
Because they're not alone.
But don't necessarily talk about your offense.
Right,
because they can get in trouble for that.
Exactly.
But they have found that very beneficial. My goal with them during treatment is talking about, okay, what are your triggers? What are the emotional and environmental things that make it more likely that you want to look at pornography? What are your thinking errors that are facilitating this type of behavior? How do you cope when you're feeling so pornography? It's so normalized in our society that people look at pornography for all sorts of reasons, not just arousal, but boredom, habit, routine, happy, sad,
bad relationships.
It just goes on and on. And so it's really kind of figuring out what it is for that individual and then providing them other ways to channel that energy and distract them into doing something different. Right. And so oftentimes I talk to them about lapses and relapses because I tell them you're not expected to be perfect, right? It would be very unusual for you to never have an urge to look at pornography again.
Sure.
I would rather you tell me and then let's help you through it. Let's say that you actually lapsed and you looked at adult pornography, but then you stopped before you masturbated.
Right.
Okay. So that is not, there's work to do, but that's not a failure, right? You have to learn from that experience and figure out, okay, this didn't work for me. So let's figure out a different way of doing things. Right. So I kind of work through the treatment. We kind of look at the connection between your thoughts and feelings, which is a very cognitive behavioral approach. And then we also look at specific ways, to kind of deprogram their brain to channeling to alternate.
Right.
Activities.
And that's what I tell a lot of my clients as well. You may have those urges, but are you going to act out on those urges?
That is one of the biggest things. And so relapse prevention techniques, which is, okay, who is my support system? Who can I go to when I need to talk to somebody or I'm having, like urges or I'm feeling really down? Instead of isolating myself, what do I need to do in order to not put myself in that situation?
The same with sex offenders.
Correct.
Right.
So there's a lot of similarity. And if we even look at other type of addictions, substance abuse, gambling and whatnot, they utilize a lot of the same modalities to treat that.
And that's what I do when they come to me. I find out, are you having urges? Have you acted out on these urges?
That's right. And one of the biggest things that I tell my clients is that I can teach you and you and I can talk about it and the education is great, but it's about you implementing it.
Well, it's about them wanting it too.
Absolutely. And at this point, I will primarily work with people who want the help.
Correct.
Because I'm not here to force anybody to change their behavior. But if you want it, I will absolutely help you along your way.
How busy are you? That's what I want to know. How busy? Tell the people how busy you really are. I know you are because you couldn't come on my show last month. So how busy are you?
I'm very busy.
I'm sure you are. That's exactly right. I know you are.
Yeah.
In reference to court, and that's important, when you have to go to court, you're testifying based on your evaluation. Am I correct?
Yes, most of the time. So are you talking about for psychosexuals or for...
For when you have to go to court?
Oftentimes. Sometimes I'm hired as a consultant.
Okay.
So I'm reviewing other materials and I'm hired to discuss that, not my evaluation.
I got you. So you can be both.
Correct.
Okay. Majority of the times that you do go to court, though, it's based on your evaluations, though, right?
Correct.
And obviously, when you get questioned about your evaluations, what is the main questions of those evaluations that you normally get asked? What are the main ones, though, that meaning the courts are more concerned about?
So for psychosexuals, the courts are mostly concerned about recidivism.
Okay.
And with the pornography offenses, whether about hands-on offenses, what's the risk of them engaging in a hands-on offense?
Okay.
So I use it as an opportunity to educate about what the research shows. And I will discuss that specific individual's proclivities and what they are particularly interested in, and maybe details about the offense and how, and also if they've been in treatment with me after I did the evaluation, I also talk about their response to treatment, how motivated they are, and what their therapeutic journey has been thus far.
Very good. And then obviously based on your evaluations, based on all the evidence that's presented, then that's when the judge makes their final ultimate decisions.
Oftentimes that could be for sentencing,
right?
Particularly for those private evaluations, yes.
Very good. Very good. Tell people, I'd like you to tell people, are there a lot of forensic psychologists out there?
There could be more.
There could be more.
We are definitely in a shortage of forensic psychologists, but also reputable forensic psychologists and ones that will do a thorough job and are fair while being compassionate and responsible in terms of following the forensic guidelines.
Right. So you are in a very, very small niche, professional niche, in reference to who you treat and who you evaluate.
Correct.
Very good. Tell the listeners why you do what you do, since what you just said before our break, that there is a very shortage of forensic psychologists, and the importance of the treatment of those kind of individuals that you do. Why do you do it?
I do forensic work first because it's interesting, and I can help and make a difference. I know that when you do forensic evaluations, there's typically someone, especially when you do it on two parties or doing a comparative analysis in a custody evaluation. My report, at the end of that, I have to make a specific recommendation regarding the party who gets custody. And these are obviously very delicate and very difficult decisions. I have a lot of sleepless nights over them because I understand what's at stake. As a parent, I definitely understand if I was in their shoes, what it would be like to have a stranger making very important decisions about my life. So I think what I bring to the table is being not only intelligent and knowledgeable about my field, but I have a compassion for the people too. And I think that balance allows me to really analyze and take in all of the information and still do it in a kind manner that is sensitive to all parties. And when I do a custody evaluation, after I finish, and they're very lengthy, I will actually have a meeting with the parties and their counsel and the guardian ad litem, and I present a copy of my report. And this is leading up to trial. And the reason I do that is so I don't blindside anybody. I do it as a courtesy to let them know this is what my findings are. This is the basis of my opinion. And hey, if you are considering settling, this would be a great opportunity to do that.
Okay.
And if you would like that, my assistance in that, I'm here to help and support. But if not, you guys can work it out on your own. Otherwise, I'm happy to come to trial and I will explain, my rationale and my basis of my findings. But I think what that does is that it allows people to sort of say, okay, here's someone who looked at everything, spoke to a variety of different people, and this is what her opinion is. And the judge is going to read this, and the judge will ultimately make their decision. So a lot of times people are able to come to agreements based on the work I do. And that is very rewarding and for me. Also, with sex offenders or individuals who are struggling with addiction, something that I've always prided myself on is looking at them as more than just their offense. And this stemmed from when I was working at Atascadero State Hospital. These are guys that were under the sexually violent predator law. I mean, this was real serious. And they were always would ask me, like, why do you treat us nicely? And I would say, I know you're still a person. I don't condone what you did, and I know you need help, but I'm here to help you. I'm not here to judge you. And I still bring that to my therapy today. I look at them as people, and I try to provide them the support and guidance and treatment so they can get their life back on track and not go back to prior destructive patterns of behavior.
And that's exactly why you are who you are. That's number one. And I think you are amazing. But you said something that I truly want to reiterate, and I do reiterate this. You just said that you make your evaluations based on someone's life. I do the same exact thing as a polygraph examiner. I make life-altering decisions based on my polygraph results, which means I know whatever my results are, it's going to affect not just one person. It can affect an entire family. It can affect a child. It can affect the whole entire family unit. And so I take my evaluations, just like you just said, very, very serious. And when you said you have sleepless nights, when someone comes to me and you just said it, that individual is an individual. I don't care what they've done in the past, whether they've cheated, whether they've committed a child sexual offense. I look at that person as that is an individual. He's a human being. He or she is a human being. And they know when they come to me, my office is non-judgmental. It's non-judgmental. I say that from the very beginning. And I think that's why people do come to me. And I will I'm there to find the facts. That's all I'm there for. Find the facts. And I think that's why people come and they talk to me, just like I'm sure they come to talk to you. Because when a spouse goes to another spouse and they find out that they've cheated, the first thing is they're going to judge. You dirty this and you dirty that. And they put shame on that person. Same with, oh my God, if you talk to anyone, if you go to a restaurant and you say, oh yeah, I work with sex offenders, the first thing is how can you do that? I'm sure you've heard that before. Oh my God, I can't believe you can look at someone. I want to, cut their, testicles off, or I want to just kill them. I sit right across from them and I just talk to them just like you do, I'm sure, because they're human beings. And I commend you for what you just said. And I think that says a lot about an individual who's professional in order to be able to do that, because there are examiners, and you said it earlier, there are therapists that just, when you come in, they just check the boxes off, and they don't look at you as that individual. They look at you as, oh, you're wearing a sex offender hat. You're just like all the other ones. Go ahead and sit in that box, and I'm going to check off the boxes, and then I'm going to put you in that same category, and I don't care what your story is. This is who you are, and you're going to go into that same category as everyone else. The job that you do, doctor, why is it so important to the community? Why is it so important for a father that is viewing pornography, for that family that you treat? Why is it so important for a neighbor that may not know technically that the next door neighbor is a child sex offender? Why is it so important for what you do?
Pornography addiction, or even pornography issues within a marriage or a family, can be incredibly destructive. And oftentimes people don't know where to turn, and they don't know where to go. And most of the time I'm getting referrals from attorneys after individuals are charged with these really serious offenses. And I provide them therapy, and they often say, I wish I had known about you sooner. I didn't know where to go, and I was embarrassed and I was afraid. And my message would be that there are people that can help you, that you're not alone, and then there are support and resources out there that please don't wait till it escalates and God forbid, you're in a position where you engage in some type of illegal behavior. Get help. There are people out there who are willing to support you in this process.
Very good. I do this with all my guests. I know you are super, super busy and you are super swamped, but there are listeners out there that after listening to this podcast will want you because of your professionalism, your compassion, your empathy, and your true knowledge and experience. Please tell the listeners right now how they can reach out to you, whether or not you can help them personally or whether you can refer them to someone who really is in a different field, but and you can refer them, but they can reach out to you first. Let them know how they can reach you.
My office is called the Center for Advanced Psychological Services. It is in Norfolk. If individuals are interested in reaching me, they can call me at 757-925-0222, or they can get more information on my website, and that is www.capshome.com.
And spell out CAPS so that they know.
CAPS, and that's the acronym for Center for Advanced Psychological Services.
Very good. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot thank my guest, Dr. Alana Hollings, more for one, taking time out of her extremely busy schedule for being on this podcast, Inside the Polygraph with David Goldberg. It means an awful lot to me. I really mean that. And I look forward to working another 16 years or more with you on many cases. And I thank everyone for listening. I hope you got a lot out of this episode, and you already know how to reach her. If you need my assistance, you know how to reach me, and I'm here for you. And I wish everyone the very best. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for listening. If you truly liked what you heard today, please be sure to rate the show, share with others, and subscribe for more episodes.